If you died and came back to life as the undead, what would you do? You'll be forced to battle horrifying monsters in unexplored dungeons and will have to take on terrifying dragons, gigantic skeletons, and other fearless opponents to become the most legendary adventurer of all time. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the monster dungeons in The Unwanted Undead Adventure. This kid is going to die and come back to life as a terrifying monster. Rent here dreams of becoming the world's strongest Mithril rank adventurer, but sucks balls and has been stuck at a low rank for years, unable to find a partner on any good quests. He heads on solo back to a place known as the Labyrinth of the Moon's Reflection, a low-level dungeon where rookies mainly go to fight low-level monsters. Entering, it's been mostly cleared out, however, that's when he discovers an unexplored passage, not on any map. Brent gets excited and plans to be the first one to explore it and make loads of money, and quickly heads on in like an eager beaver, entering this magical atrium. He's never seen anything like it before. Not realizing this is the home of an unknown monster, it leaps down from his nest, catching Rent right where he stands, shocking him. He tries to escape but discovers he's now in shock and is unable to move and realizes he's about to die. Okay, going into an unknown dangerous situation yet again without knowing anything about it is a great plan. That's really stupid. If I was him, I would have used my brains and relied on other rookies in this labyrinth to do my dirty work for me. After I found this unexplored cave and have not gone in, I'll head back into town and find someone and lure them to come along with me into this unexplored passage, but with a horrifying twist. In order for them to trust me, I would kill one rookie first before smearing their blood all over me and hiding their body. From then I would approach the second rookie, ideally I would like to find two, and be showing up to them all looking nasty as hell and injured and tell them, I've discovered injured treasure in an unexplored tunnel, help, they're hurt, ah! You know, be very convincing. This would lower their guard and being injured would allow me to fall slightly behind them, secretly turning them into a shield of meat assuming they're gullible. That way they'll get hit first in case we run into anything dangerous down here. And even if we don't find anything, we simply could have killed them from behind and buried them anywhere down here since nobody knows about it. And everybody knows that being a hunter is a dangerous job anyway. However, entering any unexplored dangerous area means that I would first have utilized a technique that world-class athletes and top CEOs use before big events to increase my chances of survival, by doing something known as mental rehearsal. In a dangerous situation like this, mentally rehearsing the plan would activate my neural pathways, which would make me chill and reduce anxiety and reinforce positive attitudes and beliefs, my muscle memory, my focus, and overall performance. And this could have been easy as pie, just taking a moment to looking at the darn cave that we're gonna go into before going in fully. We gotta identify our surroundings, look around, look for any extra cover, any extra escape route. Besides, coming across a monster like this, there's no way we can beat him, but there is something that we can do to survive. It involves tricking the brain into not being dumb. Being frozen, or the feeling of not being able to move, is known as the flight or fight response. And being frozen can happen when the threat is too overwhelming. It causes the brain to be literally not sure what to do, and causes you to be frozen for a second. In order to overcome this and get the hell out of here, I would have tried to bring the brain's attention away, and by pinching myself super hard. Pain in the brain is processed in the same area responsible for attention and decision-making functions. This means pinching ourselves super hard could temporarily divert the brain's attention to the new pain sensation and away from the freaking huge dragon. Doing this would allow us to break our shell shock and run away through the entrance we came from. Since the dragon wouldn't be able to fit in there, it's huge, we're tiny, allowing us to live and ideally leaving our good second friend to die. Rent suddenly wakes up, but he thinks he's now dead. The dragon is nowhere in sight and he considers finding another adventurer for help. But he's not able to speak. He's in a whole new body, officially a monster. He knows he can't go back home. He's gonna get killed. He starts to panic, then spots another monster like him. He struggles to defend himself because he's weak. Using his spirit power to aid him in temporary strength, he finally manages to defeat it and unexpectedly absorbs its spirit. Shocked, he remembers what his friend once told him about skeleton monsters, that some will have the ability to evolve into more powerful things known as ghouls and make them look more human. This process is known as existential evolution. Realizing this, he figures out his new goal and will slay as many monsters as he can in the labyrinth in order to evolve, hopefully, into a ghoul. Going on a killing spree, he starts kicking ass and taking names, of course on weak monsters, of course, because he's weak, and begins collecting souls and more power. But then he comes across this slime monster, and he gets very lucky and defeats it by hitting its core. After, he collects the valuable slime to sell for later, used for cosmetics. And he realizes that he's now more powerful than he ever was in his weak human form. Anyways, going balls to the walls of this dungeon, he figures out that he has the rare ability to use all three magical abilities, mana, spirit, and divinity, something not many adventurers can do, but accidentally absorbs a defeated opponent, triggering his first existential evolution to occur, transforming him into a now low-level ghoul that can now talk and looks more human. To be fair though, he doesn't talk great, but he can talk now, and this gives him an idea to evolve into a vampire one day, so that he will look the most human of all. He levels up some more and gets stronger, and increases all three of his energies, but soon soon comes across a young adventurer. The first human he's seen since his death. Not wanting to scare her away, he watches from a distance, but sees she's about to get jumped, forcing him to intervene and save her life. Still learning how to speak in his new body, he barely manages to introduce himself. Anyways, he asks her if she can do him a big favor and buy him some clothes so he can return to town, and explains to her his situation. She thanks him for saving her life and gladly accepts to help him out, saying her name is Rena. She shortly returns a little later with some fresh threads and tells him she also has these bandages and a mask to hide his scary face. However, when the mask suddenly sticks to Rent's face and won't come off, they both realize she must have bought a cursed mask. But Rent tells her he'll just save up some money and pay a priest to take it off later. Now friends, they both head back to town, Malt, and she helps sneak him in through the gates. However, Rent feels bad about using someone so innocent to help him, and ditches her as soon as possible, and heads off to find the one person who can actually help him and is not totally useless. His old friend and genius scholar named Lorraine. She instantly recognizes her old friend and calmly assesses what's going on. Never hearing of anything like this, Rent tells her that he now wants to use this body to achieve what he couldn't do as a human, to become a mithril rank adventurer, but would like to use her to help him take quests on his behalf, so that way the town doesn't figure out what he's become. She agrees to help him with his dreams and offers him her home, on the condition that Rent lets her experiment on him, specifically his body. Thinking it's a little suspicious, he agrees anyways. The next day, Lorraine comes back with money, having sold all of Rent's treasure from the labyrinth. Now with some money, he heads off in his disguise to a blacksmith and places an order for a very sexy new sword, getting a temporary one in the meantime. He gets updated from Lorraine that she thinks he's not a normal ghoul, and this likely has something to do with his existential evolution. Rent tells her he wants to keep evolving and collecting more souls until he turns back into a human ideally, and will use the labyrinth to do it. Heading back the next day, he comes across another weak adventurer who used to be just as weak as him, and is now about to die, and gets forced to save him. But this guy is desperate to team up and says he could use the money, guilting Rent into partnering up while he's here. But that's when he realizes something shocking, and he starts to get really hungry for this guy's flesh, freaking him out as he tries to keep it under control. But he smells oh so good. Reaching the secret passage that Rent himself died in. Exploring it, this time they don't find anything but another secret tunnel within. This guy goes in without thinking like a noob and steps into a booby trap and teleports him to another dungeon, making Rent realize that he's the only one that can see these traps. Following in to save him, he runs right into this boss's room and is forced to take on this giant skeleton boss with no way to escape. Okay, first off, what's with it with everybody going into hidden passages without thinking about anything at all? Oh my gosh. Look, we can assume that because they fell through a rune trap, there's no way to get out until they beat this boss, because that's what labyrinths do. But look, while this thing is magical as balls, if I was them, I would turn this giant monster structure against them by relying on our knowledge of human anatomy and biomechanics. Because this is a skeleton, it's logical to assume that it would rely on something known as structural integrity, which basically means how strong something can withstand loads of forces before collapsing. And knowing this and utilizing our environment to our advantage, we could take this thing down. It really can be done. By using these pillars near us and the tight spaces behind it, instead of fighting it head on, I would utilize the cover of the pillars to launch attacks from behind that area and target the joints of the skeleton where the bones connect, aiming to reduce the mobility first and then disable it entirely. Attacking from pillars also means that the enemy would have a hard time catching us, and we could surprise attack from here non-stop and basically spam this thing until we find a proper opening, because risking our lives to fight this thing head on is dumb. Rent deploys a series of attacks but realizes he's outmatched and his spirit attacks don't work. Quickly using divinity energy, he hopes his temporary sword can handle it and manages to cut off the monster's leg. Using this moment to officially beat it, he takes its crystal and offers it to his useless partner and reveals who he really is. He can't enter any guilds to take on quests and now wants this guy to do it for him. Not having anything to lose, this guy agrees to partner up and also owns a small restaurant that Rent can eat at any time. Heading back home, he finally introduces himself as Loris, along with his wife, and they both agree to keep his secrets safe. Rent thanks him and quickly leaves, feeling crabby that Loris is a good person, because well, he wanted to eat him so bad this whole time. He feels hunger growing and growing by the second, and rushes back to update Lorraine. He enters the house but has now changed. She tries to check on him, but he rips into her flesh. Pissing her off, she knocks him out and tells him to sleep it off. He later wakes up and apologizes, telling her what just happened on his latest mission, but she says she expected this was going to happen and points out that his body has now started healing itself. He wonders if he went through another existential evolution, but Lorraine thinks it's because he ate human flesh, and now suspects he might be a low-rank vampire known as a thrall. Since this is still a mystery for everyone involved, she thinks he's evolving into the person he wants to become, something more human, confirming Rent's suspicions. If he tries hard enough and wills it enough, he might be able to go from vampire back to a human. But this is uncharted territory, and to do this, he might have to do more than just slay monsters. The next morning, he returns to the blacksmith for a new temporary sword, while his new one is still being made, and notices his hunger for flesh is now gone. Whew. Lorraine continues to experiment on him and finds out he doesn't need to sleep and has very few weaknesses. Handing him this vial of her blood, she advises him to just, like sip on it like a tea and don't chug it so that way he can actually function and not lose control throughout the day. Again, now topped off and with a new weapon, he plans to take a new guild request. But since everyone knows his old identity, Lorraine suggests signing up as a new member under a different name. With their plan in action, he heads there and creates a fake name, but keeps his same first name like an idiot because he's stupid. The receptionist there named Sheila, and someone Rent knows, comments on this, and Rent quickly denies that he's the same person that she knows, and she strikes up a conversation about how the Rent she knows has gone missing. Realizing he's running out of wiggle room, he quickly wraps up the conversation and heads back on his mission and goes straight into the labyrinth. But suddenly hears a scream, heading to the source, spotting these two swordsmen and a healer, kids, in the middle of a goblin battle. But he notices, they're alright, and leaves them be. That's heartless, I love it. Heading back to the magic ruin he and Loris were in, he hopes to map out the unexplored area before anyone else discovers it in order to level up and get to a higher rank fast. Heading in, he realizes it's a child's room and runs into this girl. She misjudges him as a thief and tells him he's about to die and blasts him back, but notices his body and realizes he's actually a monster. Apologizing, she offers her coat to him as a gift and tells him to keep this room as a secret because of its importance to her. You know, it's pretty cool. Revealing that since he's not human, no one would be able to enter this portal without him anyways, and hands him a special map as a gift that auto-charts any labyrinth he explores for teleporting him right back outside. Whoo, that is an overpowered map. Later, using his mana, he finds out his map is not cursed and can even tag the names of anyone he finds inside the labyrinth. The next day, he heads back to the same spot to ask the girl more questions. But he finds the entrance to the room has now disappeared, so he heads to the guild instead for more missions. Impatient to level up, he starts cruising through many missions from the guild, and Sheila and other members begin to notice this, and she confronts him and says, "You're way too good to be a beginner. Boy, am I a fortune teller or what?" and asks him if he wants to try taking the Bronze Ascension exam, because the guild thinks he's good enough, offering him a fast track to leveling up. Rent eagerly accepts it, heading to begin the exam the next day. He also spots two adventurers from the other day. Passing with flying colors, the remaining candidates get told their final test. They must form a party for a real-life quest. Rent partners up with the other two from the other day, this woman named Riza and this mage named Lola, and they hear what their final quest will be. The finish line is inside a new labyrinth, the New Moon Labyrinth. The contestants have until sunset to reach it, and there are no rules. Everyone rushes to the spot. Rent says they should buy a map even though the guild already gave them one, making these two realize that the guild tricked them since their old map is 15 years old and outdated. Rent also thinks the carriage that took them there could have brought them to the wrong location, and they must stay alert. They enter the shady labyrinth, and that's when it starts popping off. Rent lets these two rookies show off their powers, and they actually don't suck, but Rent can sense there is an ambush waiting for them in the corner, and it's not monsters. Warning the two to get ready, the ambush attacks. This man slashes Rent while these two archers try to blast him, but Rent dodges their attacks while Lola and the other one tag team this other person, easily defeating their competition. Recognizing their exam contestants, the two decide to take Rent's lead from now on. Meanwhile at the guild, Sheila's boss talks to her about rumors he's heard about a powerful new adventurer she's managing, and he thinks it's weird because no one knows who he is and warns Sheila to report him if she finds anything out about him from now on. Back at the labyrinth, Rent and the team finally reach the boss's room, and Lola said they've never fought one before, and that's when some other adventurers catch up to them. But they're less adventure and they're more like douchebags since they try to bully Rent's teammates until he shows them who's boss, and he lets them go into the boss room first since they're taking a break, secretly revealing to Riza and Lola that they're in for a show. They suddenly hear piercing screams coming from the inside of the room, and the douchebags run out in fear. Rent tells them this is an unwinnable battle that they're not ready for. But Riza is cocky and thinks they can handle it and convinces Lola as well. Impressing Rent, he lets them head in, encountering their next opponent, the Grand Slime. The team breaks off and quickly launch an attack, but Riza gets knocked back like the worthless shield of meat that she is. Okay, so we got adventurers who are way too soft. There's a much easier way to pass the boss without even fighting him at all. Use everyone here, including my own teammates, because like there are no rules to this test. If I was Rent, you could have been way more creative, bro. In fact, I would have pulled a move similar to what his face did in Hunter x Hunter to try and stop the other contestants from passing the test by acting super nice and then give them all laxative-laced drinks. It's obvious they're not looking for how good you fight. They also want to know how intelligent you are and how you can strategize. This is why upon entering the exam, I would have purposely tried to help any douchebags or enemies I run into, and even assist them in passing all the levels until we reach the final level, telling them that I want everybody to win, not revealing that I'm actually manipulating them of what comes next. By gaining their trust and acting like their little bitch, I would throw off any suspicions until we get to the final boss room. From here, I would let our opponents go in first, and would have instructed my teammates here to cut their ankles the moment they came across the boss. This would have instantly disabled them, leaving them helpless against the monster, and would have provided us with a distraction to take advantage of, allowing my crew to sneak in around it while they feast on Team Douchebag without us needing to fight it at first at all. But since we're extra ruthless pieces of shit, this is a serious exam where no one is safe, I would purposely let my other two teammates take lead at this point and use them as shields of meat for for any final traps that we might run into, and use their deaths to allow me to get to safety and reach the finish line without having to fight anything or breaking a sweat at all. Rent helps Ryza while Lola works on her magic, creating this fireball. She barely manages to take it down while they finish off the boss before it can regenerate. Winning the battle, and they collect it for cash. But that's when the douchebags try and get ahead of them, but quickly get hit with a labyrinth of traps, making Lola realize that this test isn't about who reaches the finish line first, it's just about who can finish. With the defense is now used up, the gang walks past Team Douchebag and reaches the finish line and passes the test, finally becoming bronze rank adventurers. After Rent takes them on a detour, showing them the mysterious world of the dungeons. This one has a sun underground, it's a lush forest, and Rent warns them that this is the world they will be facing and they need to get stronger. Ryza asks to explore it now, but Rent says he's not ready, forces them to head back. Before splitting up, Ryza and Lola thank him for helping them and want to partner up again, but could tell that Rent is on his own journey, and they agree to just stay friends. Sheila then asks to speak in private and instantly takes him to her place. Whoa. She reveals that she has figured out his true identity, but assures him that, hey, I won't spill the beans on who you are, and proves it to him by giving him a contract, saying if she breaks it, she will become his servant. He tells her to chill out because it's like not that serious, but signs it anyway. She says she wants to help him because he's nice, and forces him to take her to Lorraine's house to talk more. Initially suspicious, she eventually believes Sheila and makes them dinner. While Sheila tells them Rent has been attracting attention around the kingdom, but it's not what they think. Many adventurers have recently started to go missing around the kingdom, and the guild thinks it's a mass kidnapping and suspects Rent might have something to do with it. The two women think Rent should lay low for a few days, while Sheila covers for him at the guild, and Rent reluctantly listens. But the next day, he changes his mind immediately and heads straight back to the labyrinth and stops by the blacksmith and finds out that he knows his true identity too. But he's fine about it, I guess. Knowing this, he feels comfortable enough and decides to test out all three of his powers, filling the sword with mana, assembling spirit by hand, and adding divinity on top of it, and almost explodes because of the power. He barely manages to create one sick attack, but breaks his sword. The blacksmith then tells him that his new sword is finally ready, but will explode if Rent tries that shit again. Rent considers upgrading his sword some more, but he has no money, so he sets out to get more cash first. Heading out, he runs into this kid being bullied and helps him get out of trouble. But the boy tells him that he's looking for an adventurer to help. His village performs a non-serious ritual every year where they pretend to sacrifice a maiden capable of using mana to the mythical master of their lake in exchange for good blessing, but it's not serious, he says. But this year, some creature literally came out of the lake and ate one of their maidens, and since then has been asking to eat more and more chicks. Rent feels bad and sets off on another side quest. He does some detective work, discovers that the monster is actually an illusion created by visiting traveling merchants, and they actually abduct the girls they took and plan to sell them to another country for money. He saves the day and gets a thank you kiss from this dude's sister, makes him excited before returning back home. And now we're done with the side story arc. Back to the main story. The next day, Rent takes up another quest to retrieve medicinal dragon blood blossom, located in an area full of terrifying creatures. He goes to meet the person who put up the quest and finds out she's this kid that belongs to this orphanage. She is surprised that a bronze rank adventurer would take this job. Her name is Alice, and tells him that she wants him to secretly retrieve these special flowers for their caretaker, a stubborn old lady who is sick, but doesn't want to ask for help and will soon die if she doesn't get any medicine. Rent feels bad and accepts the quest, and stops by their basement to help clean up, encountering these Poochie-Suri wraiths. One of them bites Rent and consumes his low-level vampire blood, causing it to turn into this cute servant, also letting Rent know what a sick new power he's found. He communicates his servant, Edel. The two head off to complete their quest, reaching Terrasek Swamp, a place where only monsters live. Attacks start flying in by a squad of goblins, but Rent's overpowered butt charges through and easily defeats them, cutting through more flesh-hungry monsters until he runs into this boss, a giant Tarek. He quickly springs into the air to attack it, but sucks, and pisses the monster off even more. His servant then does something crazy and hijacks some of Rent's divinity to attack, but the monster spits him back out, and Rent is surprised that his servant could do this and uses his divinity to charge up his sword. Attacking the monster with extra power now, he slices it clean off, absorbing some of the monsters, and he finally reaches the field of dragon's blood blossoms, but also runs into this stranger. He finds out that this man's name is Isaac, who's come here to collect flowers for his sick master. He says they've been looking for someone to regularly collect these flowers and invites Rent to go speak to his master when he's free, and Rent agrees to meet him later. Interesting. After he completes the quest for the little girl and stops back at the guild to find out the price of the monster he just killed. Impressed with the condition, they think Rent has the potential to become a silver-ranked adventurer one day, but he wonders if he will still be as strong if he turns back into a human. He then bumps into Sheila, who now looks a little bit concerned, and asks him if he knows anything about the Latoul family. Rent says he doesn't and reveals that the guild has received a personal request for Rent to go to them. She shows him the request slip and realizes that this must be the family that Isaac works for. Sheila says they are a noble family in this city, and if he wants to continue living here, he cannot refuse their request. Rent worries if they find out about his true monster identity, he might get killed by them. Understandable, but Sheila suspects they won't do anything about this, and they don't care about it. With little choice, she prepares him and sends him off to meet them. He soon reaches the Latoul family, but the guard here says he must pass this magic maze in order to meet them, and if he wins, he will get one magical tool as a reward, advising him not to rely on the sun whatever he does. Heading in, he quickly realizes that something is off, goes around in circles until he reaches this opening where this little girl is sitting. She invites him for a tea break and he cautiously accepts. He assumes she is from the Latoul family, but the girl spots that his mask is a magic tool and offers to buy it from him. However, wanting to keep his identity a secret, he politely refuses. Finishing up the tea, she offers him advice on how to get out of the maze, saying it might be better if he doesn't look at the sun, confusing him even more. Heading out, that's when the sun disappears, making him realize what the girl meant. He throws a rock into the sky and discovers that he's being teleported back to the beginning of the maze each time. Knowing this information, he eventually finds his way out at sunset and spots the little girl from earlier and Isaac waiting for him. She says her name is Laura, the head of the family, and is glad Rent accepted her request, and since he passed the maze, he can now pick any magic item he wants from their basement as a reward, and leads him into a library full of magical tools, like this toy airship that can carry the consciousness of whoever's piloting it, or this magic painting that he checks out, but it freaks him out, causing him to accidentally touch a magic item behind him, activating it, causing it to transform into this huge monster known as a golem. Isaac tells Rent to hold off the monster while he goes to get the deactivation device in another room, forcing Rent to handle this monster solo while Laura watches. Alright, so we can't trust anything here, because just like the maze, everything here is super suspicious as hell. This means that even showing off our full power to a really powerful rich stranger might be a bad idea, since that could bring suspicions about who we really are. That's why if I was Rent, I would do something way safer. At this point, the golem is way too overpowered. It absorbs mana from items it touches, and this room is full of energy, and it's only getting stronger. This is why I work instead to keep it busy by using its weakness against it. You can tell that this golem is proficient, mainly using long-range direct attacks from his mouth blasts and melee hits. Since the armor is too strong, using any long-range attacks are going to be useless. That's why I would utilize an approach similar to how smaller boxers take on bigger boxers, calling the clinch and tie-up technique. It's a common strategy that smaller boxers use to utilize their speed and agility and technique to close the distance against their opponent and fight effectively from the inside. Getting within striking range close makes the taller boxers' long arms less effective. Using this abstract idea, I would work to close the distance and fight up close, but with a twist, by scaling up the golem's body and situating myself right in the area between its shoulder blades. Due to its shoulder guard here, this means that the golem's mobility is already more restricted than usual. It has similar anatomy to a human. It also means that just like normal humans, it's unlikely that this golem will be able to reach around to grab us unless it does yoga. It can't reach us. You can tell by Laura's face that she's calm as shit, which means this is all a test or she's nuts and likes watching people die, like us. We could have just ridden this thing mofo like a drug Texan in a bull bar while we waited for suspicious Laura and Isaac to find the deactivation remote, all without showing her powers and possibly risk getting found out or dying. Isaac warns Rent that this monster absorbs the mana from surrounding objects and he's unbeatable. Rent thinks fast and cuts off this monster's arm, but realizes that Isaac is right. With no choice left, he prepares to use his secret power, using that cool combo magic spirit fusion art crap. But at the last minute, Laura deactivates it just in time. She apologizes for the mess and lets Rent continue looking for his magic tool, but that's when he comes across something insane. This vial of blood, but not just any blood, monster blood. And Rent can sense that this is special, and Laura confirms it's the blood of a vampire. She warns him that if he drinks it, he might turn into a vampire, or he might die or go crazy. I mean, the myths aren't clear. And most who drank it in the past died a horrifying death. Rent decides to take the vial of blood, and Laura likes him so much, she lets him keep the toy airship, bringing it back to Lorraine to try too. He updates her that he made a deal to occasionally collect dragon's blossoms for them once in a while, and shows her the vial of blood. She can see him hesitating to drink it, and tells him he can stay undead for the rest of his life, and live here with her in secret if he wants. But she can tell that he doesn't want that, and he takes a long and hard time to think about his future. And he thinks about his epic backstory about losing his family and friend to a monster and being saved by a Mithril-ranked adventurer, and wants to be a badass like him someday, so what does he do? He sacks up, yeah baby, and drinks the blood. But then he suddenly starts coughing up blood and his mind goes nuts, and he fears turning into a monster, but then hears Lorraine's voice telling him to come back to her and gives him the strength to not die and go insane, and transforms into something horrifyingly next level instead. He wakes up the next day and realizes he feels more human. She congratulates him on his latest existential evolution and tells him to look at his hands, seeing they now look back to normal, so he thinks. She makes him take off his clothes and discovers that he now has retractable wings, sharp fangs, and a different color eyes, indicating that he has now gone up in rank and now must be a low-rank vampire. Now he would go back to his old life and continue his quest to become the strongest adventurer ever, and Lorraine welcomes his old self back home. So guys, what do you think? Did you like the video or didn't you like the video? Let us know what you think about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. And as always, don't forget to check out our How to Beat playlist.